After Star Ocean Integrity and Faithlessness and the ill-fated Star Ocean and Amnesis, some of us wondered if we'd ever see another Star Ocean game again. But here we are, with 2022 and Star Ocean The Divine Force, a return to form for many Star Ocean fans, myself included. I am a huge fan of Till the End of Time back on the PS2, coming up for PS4, PS5, Xbox and PC with some modern twists. But is it worth your time with so many releases coming out back to back to back from Square Enix alone, let alone everything else that's been coming out? Will it sit in your backlog for months to come? Well, let's take a look at the game and find out in today's Should You Play video. Hello there everyone, my name is Joesephyr and welcome to today's Should You Play video. I've spent about 22 hours with Star Ocean The Divine Force and I wanted to wait and see how I felt about the game over the course of time, so I didn't end up releasing it a first impressions video. So while I've normally been doing sort of 10-hour in videos, I decided to leave it for 20 with this one so that I can give a more full impression. Now before we get started, don't forget to check out all of my social media links down in the description box below for more Should You Play videos, all on Square Enix titles and more to come as well. And of course over on Patreon as well, which is my members only website where you can support the channel further in exchange for a plethora of other benefits, one of which is shout-outs on all of my videos. And I do a shout-out on a random patron every time I release a video. Today that person is going to be Scuttle Spike, who is quite recent on my Patreon and is a massive supporter of mine and is a friend of mine from a long time ago. So a massive thank you goes out to you, and if you would like to be shouted out or take advantage of all the other benefits that Patreon can offer, then perhaps you'd like to consider clicking on the link in the description box below. And of course, before we continue, I would like to give a massive shout out to Square Enix, who kindly gifted me a copy of the game so that I can share my thoughts with you all. So Star Ocean The Divine Force follows Raymond, a space-age John Bon Jovi lookalike who commands a merchant vessel forced to abandon ship after being attacked onto an underdeveloped planet where he finds Laetitia, very clearly pronounced that, not Letitia, it's Laetitia, the princess of the planet's major kingdom. Now, if you've watched Star Trek, you'll know what the Prime Directive is. That's not a thing in this game. It's very much thrown out the window as Laetitia, Raymond, and their likeable blend of space age and fantasy-style companions join forces to combat the threat of the neighbouring empire, leading into a campaign which brings more of the space age to the planet Asta 4 than one might think. Now, you actually have a choice as to who you want your main character of those two to be when playing the game, which changes the ways in which you might get to some of the story beats. You'll have sections where they split off and you'll follow one character and not the other, but it doesn't largely change the story beats themselves. However, if there is one character in this game that I can't sing enough praises about, the true star of Star Ocean, get it, is the Duma. Now the Duma is like a floaty robot thing that can be like wielded on your back, or it could be a support thing. Basically what it is it allows the player to propel themselves high and fast into the sky and allows for gliding capabilities as well as combat maneuvers that you don't really see in JRPGs that are like this. And quite honestly, the Duma is fantastic. There is no other word for it. You know, in games where you're running but you'd rather like roll or jump just because you're wanting to press a button and do something that makes it feel like you're going faster, it never gets old. And I've been playing, like I said, over 20 hours. It never gets old flying around these massive open areas, some of which are surprisingly gorgeous, like giving me Xenoblade Chronicles vibes in some ways. Some of them are a bit bare bones, but the other ones that aren't really do look lovely. And then in combat, the Duma can be used to kind of fly around enemies and knock them down using the returning blindside mechanic from Star Ocean The Last Hope, which will increase your damage dealt, stun the enemies. Or, later on, you can use the Duma defensively to put up shields or lay down the pain with big special attacks. Now, combat is where the game shines, with or without the Duma. The progression systems and the skill trees that open up a number of usable skills that can be placed onto a combo tree for each of the game's cast. You then control one of those characters in real time while the other 3 AI party members support you. Being able to sort of change character just by pressing up and down on the D-pad, or you can press the touchpad. I played this on PlayStation 5, by the way. You're pressing the touchpad so that you can freeze time to kind of plan your next action or use items. It really does feel like old school Star Ocean, but with a fluid and a frantic twist and like I said, charging into battle, using the Duma, getting a blindside, and then just watching enemies helplessly sit there while you plow away at them was really fun. And boss fights were challenging as well. Like, you can't just spam a button, and you do actually still have to think. So it was nice to see that variety in the content. Now, like many RPGs, there's a lot of side quests, a lot of extra stuff to do as you progress through the main story. I tried hard to sort of focus very little on the side quests because I wanted to try and get as far through the game in the time frame I'd given myself as I could, but it is very easy to miss things if you're not exploring those side quests, which honestly includes Esoa, which is a chess go-like minigame that actually gets you some really powerful accessories, which are the playing pieces themselves, which are references to older Star Ocean games, even a few games outside of Star Ocean that Tri-Ace has made in the past. So I definitely suggest walking around and doing as much as you can when playing it. Not to mention, Esoa was actually really fun. Like, it's only a shame that the AI could be a little bit more intelligent while you're working your way up the game. Now, the game's not perfect. I'll put it out there. One can see that Star Ocean isn't the prettiest looking video game on modern consoles. But I reckon that this would be due to constraints on the budget that was made for Star Ocean, and what has been done here is largely very good. The lip syncing, however, is hilariously bad, and while I do actually think that a lot of the voice acting in the game is really good, Leticia's voice acting was wooden at best, and some of the animations of the characters was a little bit iffy, but by and large it didn't detract from my enjoyment of the game. And honestly, sometimes when the games do this where they're a bit dodgy on the animations or the lip syncing, I genuinely find it hilarious, and sometimes it actually adds to the enjoyment for me. I don't know if that's true for everybody. A lot of people don't like that kind of thing, and I totally get it. Pokemon's a great example of this. I find the bugs hilarious. But I will say that the music is on top form, as it has always been, courtesy of Mokoi Sakuraba, and actually changes depending on which of the two main characters you've chosen. So Leticia, if you're playing as her, like, she's obviously more old school, a bit more orchestra, whereas Raymond, being a, I don't know, pretend rocker of some form, has like progressive rock as like his battle themes and stuff like that. So again, it's nice to have that level of agency when playing. I will also say that the AI in combat could have done with a little bit of work. There were numerous occasions where I would be fighting bosses and then my AI companions, no matter who they were or how I'd set them up, would occasionally just walk into attacks and just get KO'd, and then I'd have to spend time with the other characters switching between them just to make sure they'd queued up curatives so that I was able to get back into the fight again. And yet, my player character, I could take on hordes of enemies and not worry about it. So I do think that the AI for the player characters could have done with a bit of work. So let's go ahead and ask the big question of the video. Should you play Star Ocean: The Divine Force? Now, I've read a fair few critic reviews that I've looked at for Divine Force, because I do like to kind of get a gauge on what other people's sentiments are towards a game before I release a review. But I think that a lot of them kind of treat Star Ocean: The Divine Force as like a last-ditch effort to show that the franchise deserves one last shot. But I honestly think that's a bit of a disservice to the game, to be honest, because there's a great deal to love in this game, particularly if you've enjoyed other Star Ocean games, except for faithlessness and integrity. We don't talk about that one. There's definitely some rough edges, like in terms of the visuals and some of the presentation, but don't let that fool you into thinking that the raw gameplay of Divine Force is anything else than lovely. In the 20 plus hours I've played of it, which, having spoken to other people who've played it, is just over the halfway mark. I'm over the halfway mark in the story at the very least. I've enjoyed greatly seeing new mechanics being interspersed throughout, and it's got decent pacing in how it introduces them. The solid combat and the skill progression, and even the minigames, which are normally a part of JRPGs I loathe, especially if there's too many of them and they're not fun, were really fun too. And quite frankly, combat and the movement mechanics in Star Ocean were so fun that, quite frankly, if I saw the Duma in literally every JRPG I played from this point onwards, I wouldn't be mad about it. So that is all for today's Should You Play video. Let me know in the comments below whether you've played Star Ocean The Divine Force, if you're a fan of the older Star Ocean games, or if you've just sort of looked at the footage you've seen in this video and thought, maybe that's not for me. All opinions are valid here, so definitely let me know in the comments below what you guys think. Don't forget to like the video, subscribe to the channel, and click that bell for notifications on any future videos I might be making. And that's going to be all from me, so thank you ever so much once again, and I will see you next time, beautiful. Have a lovely day.